All right. I just don't want you to tell me it's all in my mind. I know it is. Go on. They told me I'd never really get well. I'd have to take it easy the rest of my life. Because of the heart. No strenuous exercise. No stairs. No long walks. No shocks. Shock produces excessive adrenaline, they said. Bad. So that's the way it was. When I got out of school, I grabbed a soft desk job. Unexciting. Numbers. Adding numbers. That's all. Things went okay for a few years. Then it started again. I read about where some woman got into her car at night and happened to check for something in the back seat and found a man hidden there, waiting. It stuck with me. I started dreaming about it. So every night when I got into my car, I automatically patted the rear seat and floorboards. It satisfied me for a while until I started thinking, what if I forget to check? Or what if there's something back there that isn't human? I had to drive across Laurel Canyon to get home, and you know how twisty that stretch is. 30, 50-foot drops, straight down. I'd get this feeling halfway across. There's someone, something, in the back of the car, hidden in darkness, fat and shiny. I'll look in the rear view mirror and I'll see his hands ready to circle my throat. Again, doctor, understand me. I knew it was my imagination. I had no doubt at all that the back seat was empty. Hell, I kept the car locked and double-checked. But, I told myself, you keep thinking this way, Hall, and you'll see those hands. It'll be a reflection or somebody's headlights or nothing at all. But you'll see them. Finally, one night, I did see them. The car lurched a couple times and went down the embankment. That, my friends, was from Perchance to Dream, the title of this classic collection of horrifying tales by Charles Beaumont. This is Perchance to Dream, Selected Stories by Charles Beaumont, and this is your Sunday Penguin for the day. So yes, this is your Sunday Penguin. This is Perchance to Dream by Charles Beaumont. And it has a fantastic cover that's very, very in line with the fiction in this collection. So I've talked about this collection before a couple times, but it's been a while and it's never actually been an official Sunday Penguin, so I thought I would break it out again and talk a little bit more about it. Because Charles Beaumont, he deserves to be talked a little bit more about. He's not very well known at all nowadays, Charles Beaumont. He was one of the writers for the original television show, The Twilight Zone. Rod Serling, who couldn't handle writing every single episode himself, hired a couple other people to write stories with him. Richard Matheson famously, and this guy, Charles Beaumont. And in fact, in this collection, there are, I believe, 5 stories that were turned into Twilight Zone episodes. All the episodes were a little bit different. A couple of them were a lot different. But it's certainly interesting if you're a fan of that show to go back and read some of these original stories by Charles Beaumont. So Charles Beaumont was a writer mostly of short stories. Mostly. He wrote a novel or 2, I think. I haven't read them, but I hope to someday. But mostly he is known nowadays for his short fiction. They were dark fantasy, horror, suspense type of stuff. He's kind of hard to categorize, Charles Beaumont. He was writing along with some other writers at that time who wrote kind of in a similar vein. Ray Bradbury, Richard Matheson, even Harlan Ellison would be in this group. And he was very much in that line. The speculative fiction, horror fiction, dark fantasy kind of thing. And you'll find examples of all of that in this book. Kind of hard, like I said, to categorize Charles Beaumont, but definitely, I think, more than anything else, he was a horror writer. Because even when he wrote other types of things, all his stuff was kind of dark. All had kind of an edge to it. Even his humor was dark humor. And he did have a dark sense of humor. Charles Beaumont kind of suffered a terrible fate. It could have been one of his own stories. He died early in his mid-30s, and we're not sure what it was. He seemed to grow old as a young man. It is thought that perhaps it was early onset Alzheimer's, but no one really knows. He didn't have an official diagnosis as far as I know. And it was tragic for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons for us as readers is that we don't have more wonderful stories by Charles Beaumont, because this guy was a unique writer. Even though his stories sometimes feel like Ray Bradbury stories, or Richard Matheson stories, or even Robert Bloch stories, they're all written in his own type of style. They all have his own kind of dark edge to them. And that's why his Twilight Zone episodes are so memorable. The most memorable being probably The Howling Man, which is a classic story that you'll find in this volume. And it was certainly one of those episodes of The Twilight Zone that if you saw it, you're never going to forget it, probably. Their title story, Perchance to Dream, is another very effective little short horror story that was turned into a Twilight Zone episode. A pretty good one. Although, all the stories, I think, with maybe one exception, probably work better as stories. They're great little horror stories. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. This was edited. Who edited this story, or this volume? Let's see. Forward by Ray Bradbury, afterward by William Shatner, which is pretty good. But I'm not seeing the editor here. Whoever chose the stories did an excellent job of choosing the stories in this volume. And it does have a foreword by Ray Bradbury, which is well worth reading. And it has kind of a touching, interesting, very short little afterwards by William Shatner, who was a friend of Charles Beaumont. They worked on a film together. Charles Beaumont actually did quite a bit of work in film and in television. And every once in a while, if you watch something, some classic horror movie or something, I'll be like, hey, he worked on that. But I think it's his fiction. His fiction is definitely the best thing that he did, I think. And it's well worth checking out. His books are being reprinted by a small publisher, I think. I'm forgetting who. Do I have any of it around? Probably not. I probably should have dragged something out for that, because I do have a couple of his other books. But this is the one that's going to be the easiest to find. And it's definitely the best kind of introduction to Charles Beaumont's work. He didn't write a lot. He only wrote a short amount because he did not live a long time. But this one is probably the perfect volume to pick up, this Penguin volume, to get a really good feel for the kind of thing that Charles Beaumont wrote. And it is really just beautiful, fascinating, horrific stuff with a dark edge to it. Now, Charles Beaumont is a product of his time. You can tell when you read these that it was the 60s, late 50s into the 60s. Very much written from the perspective of somebody living at that time. And he kind of is really good at showing us some of the things that people were frightened of at that time in history, which makes this book really interesting in itself. A lot of stories that include a feeling of alienation in this book. So yeah, Perchance to Dream by Charles Beaumont. I recommend it extremely highly if you're interested in horror fiction, speculative fiction, science fiction. This is definitely worth checking out. Certainly if you're a fan of The Twilight Zone, you've got to get this book, because This is the Twilight Zone, but edgier. So yeah, my highest recommendation, Charles Beaumont, Perchance to Dream. There you go. All right, guys. I will catch you back here tomorrow when we have another Thrilling Mythos Monday, which I believe just happens to be my 200th video. Woo! Okay, guys, I will catch you here tomorrow.